everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOCReader, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my July reading wrap up. So as I was sitting down to film this video, I realized I did the worst job ever trying to log my reads this month. I just wasn't logging most of them. Usually I'm pretty good about putting them on Goodreads. I'm pretty good at getting at least one review up a week. That did not happen during July. And so I definitely need to make up for that in August. I don't remember the order in which I read some of these books, and I'm hoping that I don't miss any books, but considering I really didn't do the best job logging them, I don't know. Also, July was a very mood reading month for me. Like, I would start a book and I'd be really into it and I'd put it aside and kind of forget about it. So that's how that went. There were a couple of DNFs too, and some that I pushed through. So let's get into it. So I read Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf. This was did to me by Simon & Schuster Audio. I did a separate review just talking about Daggermouth. It is a spoilery review because I feel like I couldn't talk about what I actually wanted to talk about unless I did a spoiler review. So if you want to check that out, you can definitely go check that out. And what I will say about Daggermouth here is I could initially see the hype, but then as we got further and further into it, it kind of went off the rails for me and I could no longer see the hype. I think as a dystopian romance, it didn't necessarily do what it needed to do when building the dystopian world. A lot more needed to be done. It was just very much the aesthetics of a dystopian. It actually felt more like a mafia romance. I don't feel like she put much thought into what she was writing as far as what she was trying to say with the world and developing the world. I feel like she put more thought into the romance and just how cool everybody looked, and that was the end result. I read The Broken Hearts Agency by Clarence A. Haynes. This one took me a little bit to read, even though it is quite short. I also don't like, this is just like a little rant. For some reason, the paperback of this is taller than the paperback of The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery, which annoyed me because this is a series. Like, they don't outright advertise it as a series, but you have to read The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery, I feel like, to really get into this one because it picks up where that left off. There's crossover characters from that book and they talk about events that happened in Gwendolyn Montgomery. So if you are planning on picking this one up, you need to go read that one first and see how you feel and then hop into this one. So with The Broken Hearts Agency, we followed a lot of characters. A lot. We were following Evelyn, we were following Linda, we were following Fonzie from book 1. We were following some side characters who were being affected by this. It's like a disease that was a magical disease that was spreading and turning these people like into these uncontrollable like creatures, and it was pretty interesting. I think we could have done though without some of the POVs because that just kind of slowed things down. I really did enjoy Linda. I enjoyed Evelyn. I thought the magic was very unique here because it did blend Afro-Latinx folklore, and the way that came about was super interesting. I like that it was set in DC and you have all these people deciding whether they should stay or run away from this thing that is taking over the city. I like how it explored different relationships with a variety of people. We had queer relationships, we had straight relationships here. And one thing I will say, I didn't love the sex scenes here. There are a few sprinkled throughout. The way in which stuff was described in the sex scenes was not the most sensual to me. So I didn't love that. But overall, I had a decent time with this one. I did not like it as much as The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery though, but it was still a pretty solid read. The Princess Diaries, this is by Meg Cabot. This is the graphic novel adaptation, and this was illustrated by Bethany Crandall. So I read some of the Princess Diaries books back when I was like a preteen into my teen years. They were at the library. I really remember enjoying that Christmas Princess one. But it had been so long since I read any of the books that I thought it would be cool to just like jump into the graphic novel. Especially because the books were, while they do have the same basic concept of this girl finding out that she is a princess, they're very tonally different. The Disney movie is a lot more watered down, and in the movie, the dad is dead. In the books, he's very much alive. He just found out that he cannot have any more kids. So Mia is his sole heir, and that's why he wants to rush her into becoming a princess, because she's going to be the heir to the throne. And the books took place in the late 90s and early 2000s. Although recent books have come out where with Mia as an adult, they did make the series take a shift from, you know, the YA/teen books that they were published as to now adult, as they've published more with Mia, and now she's grown. I would be interested though in reading one of those just to see how it read. But I thought this did a great job staying true to the original series and holding on to that 90s feel, because I thought for sure they were going to modernize it. They did not. Instead, they kept all the same 90s pop cultural references here and still kept it set in the 90s. I appreciated that very much. It made it feel nostalgic for somebody like me, but at the same time I feel like the kids could read it today and still enjoy it. I would say this is more of a one for preteens, because unlike the Disney movie, it does like talk about, you know, sex. And there's a funny scene where because they're in New York, which is another difference in the movie. These books take place in New York and the movie took place in San Francisco. They're in New York, so they're teens. They're a lot more savvy to their surroundings because they're walking through the city by themselves, taking the subway, etc. There's this man who pretends to be blind. And he pretends to be blind so he can cop a feel on women. Like, by like, oh, I'm blind, I need help crossing the street. He's a recurring gag through it, and it is so funny how that's done. I was like cracking up laughing. But yeah, these are teens. They have hormones. It's like first crushes, dating, sexuality, all the things that you're dealing with at that young age was still here and still written perfectly and very relatable. I loved how Mia's transformation was. It's Lily, as annoying as she is in the movies, of course, she's actually more annoying here with her staunch feminism. But I love that Mia was just like, yeah, no, I deserve a friend who's better, bye girl, and ditches her for a while and makes some new friends. So that's awesome. If you're not somebody who had read the initial books but you love the movie, I think you should check this one out. It's a great intro to the book series, and it might inspire you to actually go back and read them, because I do think that it was a very good series for its time. This is Camp Frenemies by Liz Montague. So I was reading this one. I gave a copy to my niece, because shout out to those of you who really came through for my niece and got a lot of books from her wish list last year. She has been reading them and enjoying them, though her reading has slowed down a little bit. We got to get back up there. Got to find some ways to motivate her more. You know, the kids, got to keep them reading. But Camp Frenemies is a very dramatic graphic novel. You have a girl, her name is Beatrice. I believe she's like on the spectrum. It didn't outright say, but she kind of gave those vibes. And she is in the 6th grade, or she just graduated the 6th grade, and she's been walking around with her favorite stuffed animal everywhere. Her father decides to send her to camp because she needs to socialize with people her age more. And she ends up bunking with Roxy and Virginia, and there's a lot of drama between them, hence the Camp Frenemies name. Lots of like catty, mean girl stuff that was very common in middle school, but they all learned to work it out at the end. The Princess and the P.I. by Nikki Payne. I really enjoyed this one, actually a lot more than I thought I was. I was low-key afraid that it was going to disappoint me. This is my first Nikki Payne novel. It was kind of the first one that I was interested in, and I do think that I will read maybe her next one that comes out after reading this one, because I'm still not that interested in her first two. But I think she did a solid here with this one. This is a romantic suspense, which I haven't really read a lot of romantic suspense books recently, but it is a genre that I enjoy. I still have some Harlequin romantic suspense books on my shelf that I need to get to, but I do love when you have a romance that gives you like that mystery and they're solving a case, because it just gives the characters something to do besides just obsess with each other. I thought the chemistry here was really great. So we are following Maurice and Fiona. Maurice is a detective who is haunted by a case he could not solve that resulted in a woman being killed. He uses alcohol and drugs to cope. He is down bad. And we have Fiona. She is the daughter of a pastor. She has grown up in a very staunch Christian fundamental church, you know, African family, very, very strict. And so she ends up getting caught in the mix of this big scandal that has happened in the church. She's trying to find out how her brother ended up dying. She gets arrested. She's scouring Reddit, trying to be her own detective, looking for clues and stuff. She and Maurice end up teaming up to try and help get the case solved. And like I said, there's a lot of chemistry between them. I thought that the author did a great job here because Fiona is a virgin. She hasn't experienced a lot of stuff, and she's very curious about breaking out of her family shell. That she did a good job kind of exploring her, just letting loose and testing different things without going too far. I thought it was very fast-paced too. I listened to some of it via audio, and the narration was great. So overall, I had a really good time with this one. I read Sugar, Spice, and Can't Play Nice, and this was one that I had bought like a year or so ago from the Dollar Tree. Whenever you can find a $1.50 book, and it sounds like it'll be a good time, pick it up. So I had seen this cover before and heard about this author before, so I figured it was a good opportunity to just try somebody new. So this is about Pyle and Aaron, or Pyle and Ayan. Pyle is living in the US away from her family who lives over in the UK. She's been doing her own thing, really being an independent woman. And then she hooks up with Ayan, finds out that he is still somewhat in a situation with his ex, and is like, bye. Well, then when she goes back to the UK, because her parents call her, they're like, you need to come over now, stuff's going down. They're having money troubles with their company, so the solution is for them to marry her off to this family that has money, and they're going to merge their company under theirs, and that'll save everybody's jobs. And when she finds out that the guy they want her to marry is Ayan, who is also living away from his family over in the US, she's like, no, I don't even know this guy, like, he's an asshole, I don't want to do this. But at the same time, she feels guilty because a lot of people's livelihoods and jobs are on the line unless she makes this decision. And she's like, well, maybe I can get to know him and see how this goes. So in the book, we follow them kind of like dating and getting to know each other outside of this arrangement. I thought this was really well done. I enjoyed seeing their culture displayed on page. I thought it was a good slow burn, even though like we did start out with them having a one-night stand. The way they supported each other with each other's career achievements was really nice, and overall it was a very sweet story. Benny Ramirez and the Nearly Departed. This is by Jose Pablo Ariarte. So I listened to this one via audio. I got it from Libby. It had been on my TBR. So I was just like, why not? I need something quick to read one Saturday. This was really enjoyable too. Like a very fast-paced middle grade read. Not so much a spooky ghost story. Just like a fun one about Benny. His grandfather passes away, but his grandfather wasn't the best person when he was alive, and he has some unfinished business, so he gets the chance to come back and take care of that unfinished business with the hopes of getting into heaven. Well, he decides his job is to teach Benny, who has now moved to Miami and is living in his old house and is at this performing arts school that he doesn't feel like he fits in at, to teach. He's going to teach him how to play the trumpet and follow in his footsteps as a great musician. And hilarity ensues. Like I said, it's a very quick read. I think it's good for the kids who want to dip their toe into more paranormal stuff but don't want anything too spooky. It was a great story about coming into a new environment and learning to adapt and make friends. And also a good story about connecting with family. So it's a very quick read, good time with it. I read Die For Me by Shirlene Obobi, and I have never read anything by this author until this one. I had one of her books because it was sent to me by the publisher, and I wasn't really interested in it. That was just sent unsolicited, so after a year of being on my shelf and me not opening it, I just ended up giving it away on the free table at work and letting somebody else read and hopefully enjoy it. So this kind of intrigued me because you don't get a lot of paranormal romance in trad by Black authors, and a lot of people were initially raving about it too, which also intrigued me. I went in knowing that the main character was racially, the main love interest was racially ambiguous. I didn't understand quite what that meant until I actually read it, and I will say I hated that part so bad. Because when she first meets him, he's actually described as racially ambiguous, and we don't look at people and be like, look at that racially ambiguous man, but it literally said the words racially ambiguous on page. So we have Sean. She is a cardiologist. She had an abusive relationship that she is free from, and she's living life. She doesn't want to have any kids. She's working hard in this field as like a lone Black woman by herself. Independent woman, don't need no man type of situation. She goes to this wedding for a co-worker who used to be a friend until he divorced one of their good friends suddenly so that he could run behind this mysterious new woman who does work like with them to an extent. And so she's really not looking forward to going to this wedding, but part of it is her wanting to show up for her goddaughter. Part of it is her just wanting to be nosy. So she goes, she meets Julian, this racially ambiguous man with a slight British accent. He ends up bumping into her at her workplace later on. He gets to convince her to go out on a date with him. Every time she's around him, she feels very funny. She just feels like she's not herself around him. Sometimes she feels a little bit sick. It feels like she's getting like sick, but she doesn't know with what. Her symptoms don't align with anything that makes sense, whatever. They start to bond over singing and his history of a lot of different things, and he speaks a lot of languages. He still felt very blank slate, which I hate. And a part of it is because he was lying to her both outright and then by omission. She asks him at one point what race he is. He won't answer the question. He dodges the question, and she's like, well, he could be Mediterranean, he could be mestizo Latino, he could be black because he looks like my light-skinned cousins, he could be this, he could be that. And that conversation irked me so bad. As I'm like, no, he can't actually look like all those races at once. All those people have distinct features and do not look alike. So that bothered me, and it bothered me too because a lot of black women authors are doing this right now, where they are writing these racially ambiguous male main characters instead of just writing a white love interest. And I feel like they're doing it solely because they don't want to get the backlash of writing a white love interest, and they still want to suck in that audience who only reads black romance. And my thing is that if you are trying to write something different and those people only read black romance, they only want a black love interest, they are not the audience for you. Everybody is not going to be for you. If you want to write a white man, stand fully in it, because these half-ass, vaguely POC leaning love interests are not working for me. Especially when these books always go out of their way to make sure we know the female main character is black. Like, after we play a guessing check with his race, he asks her what she is, and she's just like, oh, I'm just black. Irked me to my soul so badly. Like, really, really, you don't understand how that irked me. And so, again, he's racially ambiguous. We're supposed to, I guess, hand wave that because he is not actually human, but at that point we don't, like, we're not led to believe he's not actually human. Again, you know if you look at the cover and because you read the synopsis, but at that point Sean is nowhere near finding out that he's not actually human. And I feel like even though he's not actually human, he could have just picked a race and been coded as black, but that's just my opinion. So they didn't really have chemistry to me at all. I thought we were going to get a lot of sensuality here. She's just horny all the time, and he is just basically a nice guy, very basic nice guy too, and she's enthralled by that. And so eventually they have sex, and she gets like sicker shortly after he gets sick. She thinks that they just came down with some flu or whatever, some 24-hour bug, whatever. Eventually, like, they stop having sex. He breaks up with her, and then she decides, like, you know, all my symptoms aren't making sense. What is going on here? She does her Googles, finds out that he is an incubus, and that's when the plot finally kicks in after the 60% mark. The fact that it took until like a little bit over halfway through the book for some plot to actually kick in also bothered me. And then we start going from there. I thought that like between 60 and 80% it was intriguing, but we don't get enough world building for me, and then we get introduced to a lot of characters like rapid fire after that, as we rush towards a very unsatisfying ending. This man was toxic. He was a walking red flag. So the fact that we keep trying that this is being sold as a romance when it was giving me horror at times, I hate it. There was nothing romantic about this man. People who were saying that this was like the 2000s paranormals, it was not. Those were much better crafted. This was more like a paranormal for people who don't really read paranormal romance, because you can go through most of this book with it just feeling like a contemporary romance. Those elements don't really come in till later, and in the grand scheme of things, it didn't have as much of an effect as it should. Again, even that epilogue at the end, annoying. Really wanted to have a good time with this. Really thought it would be like a guilty pleasure type book. It was not. So that's everything that I read during the month of July. Let me know if any of these books sound interesting to you. What was your July reading like? And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!